If you're like me, you have a bunch of websites on the internet, or maybe you're just getting started and you want to put something on the internet. And the first thing you do is start to look for web hosts or different services and different things, and you got to pay a bunch of money. But what if I told you if you just had some static content, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some images, you could put them onto the internet for free with Azure Static Web Apps? That's right. And in fact, if you're using other frameworks like Blazor, if you're a .NET developer, or Angular, React, Svelte, Vue, or other static site generators like Gatsby, Hugo, or VuePress, or even Next.js or Nuxt.js, you can use Azure Static Web Apps to host your websites for free. And you can get free SSL certs, custom domains, and so much more. So today, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about Azure Static Web Apps to host your websites for free, even with an Azure Function backend. So tune in. Hey everyone, I'm James, and I'm back today talking about the web. I never talk about the web unless I need to talk about the web. And in the last 2 weeks, I've been publishing a bunch of websites onto the internet in record speed with custom domains, custom certs, and all sorts of goodies, thanks to Azure Static Web Apps. It's my new favorite service in Azure. And of course, in case you don't know, I work for Microsoft. This is not an advertisement for Microsoft at all. There's other static website things that you can use. I work at Microsoft. I use Azure personally in my side projects outside of work, and that's where this came in. I build a bunch of stuff outside of work, just like this YouTube channel, and I just fell in love with Azure Static Web Apps. I was up and running, publishing my websites for free onto Azure in minutes with a custom domain name and free SSL certs and a Azure Function backend for my application. It's mind-blowing. Of course, I'm a .NET developer, so I use Blazor to build my applications, but if you're not a .NET developer, that's okay too. Like I mentioned in the intro, there's tons of JavaScript frameworks and static site generators, different web frameworks like Next and Nuxt that you can use with Azure Static Web Apps to host your apps for free. So when you think about it, what is a static web app? Well, it's static content, or it's stuff that doesn't need a server to process it. So it's stuff that runs in the browser, right? It's just serving static content. So normally we think of that as HTML or CSS or JavaScript or images. But in the world of Blazor, for example, there's WebAssembly, which means you can run your code and your logic and stuff inside the browser, which means you can run your Blazor app in Azure Static Web Apps, which is awesome, right? No server required because it's just static content. Now, what's really great is that this integrates into different CI services like GitHub and Azure DevOps. So it can automatically redeploy on demand. It's globally distributed thanks to Azure, which is pretty awesome. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, free SSL certs, free custom domain names, and a lot more. Now there is a free tier and a paid tier. I'm using the free tier myself, and we'll take a look at the differences between those two. But it is super awesome. I love it. Whether you're using Visual Studio, VS Code, the command line, and a text editor, whatever you want, you can get up and running in no time. Like I mentioned earlier, I work for Microsoft. This is not sponsored. This video is not sponsored by Microsoft in any way. I just fell in love with this. I don't work in the Azure group, but I love this thing. So I need to tell everyone about it and show you how it works. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at how to get started with Azure Static Web Apps today. So let's go ahead and do it. All right, so the first place to start actually is just in the documentation. It's fantastical. It kind of walks you through exactly what it looks like, which is, you got code, goes through some different CI services and publishes your static content up into Azure Web Apps, Static Web Apps. Now, the cool part here is that there is this API backend with Azure Functions, and you can use an Azure Function to actually integrate into different services and basically create an API for your website. Now, what's nice here is there's all these tutorials. So here, if you're using Gatsby, Hugo, VuePress, Jekyll, or you're using Blazor or Next or Nuxt, this will show you how to do this. It'll even show you how to add a database, add Azure Front Door. So if you want to do custom routing, it's a whole bunch of good stuff in here. But if you pick one, it's going to walk you through the process. So I've gone ahead and picked building a Blazor application with an API, and that's where we're going to get started. It's going to walk you through what you need, blah, 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 blah. And there's a bunch of stuff in here. It doesn't really matter. But what you need to know is about this static web dev GitHub thing over here. And each of these have sort of templates. So there's a guide here if you already have existing website of how to actually integrate and get your site ready for Azure Static Web Apps. But if you're starting from scratch like I was, you just come in and basically clone a default getting started project. So any of these have that in there. And when you go to the static web dev site, it kind of walks you through it here, and you can look at the repositories that are in here. So there's an Angular one, there's a vanilla JS one, Nuxt starter, a Nuxt 3 starter, a Next.js, a React, a Vue, all sorts of good stuff in here. So if I go in here and just type in Blazor, because that's what I'm going to get started with, there's a Blazor starter and a Blazor basic, which is just the Blazor web app and nothing else. Actually, it has some playwright tests, which is pretty cool too. But we're going to start here with the Blazor starter because this has both an API and a front end. So a backend Azure Function and a front end and some shared code in between. So what you got to do is just say, use this template. Of course, you could download and clone the repository, not a big deal, but I'm going to say, go ahead and create a new repository. Or you could open it in a code space. I'm just going to open this here. I'm going to select an owner, which is me. And I'm going to say, let's say YouTube Static Web App. I don't know, that sounds good. I'm going to make it private. And I'm going to go ahead and say, create a repository from this. So this kind of creates a nice little link here so I can see where it was generated from. So this takes just a few seconds from scratch. And just like that, I have code totally ready to go. So I can copy this. I'm going to go and open up Visual Studio and just go ahead and open this up. Cool. All right, so it cloned it up and we have one solution in here. So like I said, I'm a .NET developer, so I have solutions and a few projects inside of here. And this one's going to be based off of .NET 7. So I have a .NET 7 app. We can see that it's using the WebAssembly package here. And I also have an API, which is actually an Azure Function, which is the weather forecast function. And this is an isolated Azure Function, so it's going to run isolated mode. But here it's just going to have a single API called weather forecast. And the really cool part about Azure Functions is they're event driven, they're API driven, so you can actually get different connectors basically and say, oh, let me pull some data from table storage or from Cosmos or for something else. You can have inputs and outputs. It's really, really neat. So here, this is just creating a very simple HTTP trigger. It's going to go get a bunch of data and return a JSON blob to me basically. And then over here inside of my client application, I have a very simple Blazor application. It just says, hello world, welcome to your new app. There's a component in here. There's a counter. And then there's a fetch data. And this fetch data will go off and hit the API to call it down. So here we can see it's going to call /API weather forecast. And when I go into the program file, we can see that it's adding a scope here. It's going to try to grab this API prefix, which is coming in basically automatically from the Azure Static Web App configuration, else just the base address. Now, there are a few different configurations basically in here to handle fallback because it is static content. So if there's navigation, it'll fall back to index.html, for example. So it'll handle that navigation stack for you. But there's really not a lot else in here, to be honest. There's some CSS, there's some Bootstrap, a few properties like launch settings, and that's about it. So cool. We just have our website. It's really good to go. It's just a out of the box Blazor application. So now we need to set up our Azure Static Web App. We want to get this thing onto the internet. So let's do it. All right. So I'm in Azure, and the first thing I'm going to do is create a resource group. We're doing this 100% from scratch. So let's call this the YouTube Static Web App resource group. Now I'm on the West Coast, so I'm going to do West US 2, and I'm going to hit review and create that. And we should get our resource group. So a resource group allows you to put multiple apps, multiple things inside of it. So usually, if I have a website, it might have all my different services like my table storage, my Azure Functions, my app service plan, all that stuff like that. But here we have a resource group, so I can clean this up when I'm all done. And I'm going to say create. Now you don't have to do this from the portal. You can do this 100% from, Azure command line, a bunch of other ways of doing it in the documentation, but this is how I like to do it. I'm going to type in static web and we see static web app. And I'm just going to say create Azure Static Web App. All right, cool. So here, this is going to say, where do you want to put it in this resource group? Let's call it the YouTube Static Web App, just Static Web App. And here we go. This is the hosting plan. There is a free, which says for hobby or personal projects, and standard for general purpose production. So here, there's a breakdown of what this looks like. So for free hobby use or personal projects, like the one that I'm using, you do get 100 gigabytes of bandwidth per subscription. I'm not sure if that's per month, but it says per subscription. Maybe that's total. And then there's free, basically, or $9 per month for standard. And then here's the bandwidth overage. I guess it's free, which is nice. But here's the real difference in the breakdown is that you do get a custom domain name up to 2 per app. You do get SSL certs, which are free on both. But if you want custom authentication and private endpoints, then you're going to need the standard plan. And then, of course, there's the max app size. So based on how big your app is, 250, 500. And then there's a few other things. Like, for example, inside of here, you have 3 staging environments instead of 10. And then the Azure Functions backend, which you don't have to use at all. You might not even need a backend. You have to use managed, but in the standard, you can actually bring your own. So you can actually use existing Azure functions that are out there and pull them in. It's quite cool. And then they do have this enterprise grade edge thing. I'm not actually sure what that is, but it's there if you need it. There you go. Now this is pretty cool. So I'm going to use free. I'm going to go and say West US 2. So it's available in a bunch of regions. And then here you can do deployment. So GitHub, Azure DevOps, or others. You can tie it into other systems as well. But this is on GitHub. I have linked to my GitHub account. I'm going to say me. I'm going to go ahead and say YouTube Static Web App. Boop. And then branch is main. Now this is where things get really, really interesting. I like how they did this in the Azure portal. It says, well, what build presets do you want? Well, what are you using? Well, we have all these different things. So there's the static site generators, there's custom, there's HTML, there's Svelte, there's Angular. This is a Blazor app. So I'm going to say Blazor. Then it's going to ask me, well, we know what Blazor apps have, which is a client and an API, and then an output location, which is the www root. So all you need by default is the client and probably the www root. And if you're not going to use the API, you can remove it, which means it won't get built in the CI system. It'll just sort of ignore it. But we're going to use the Azure Function backend. And what it's going to do is create a GitHub Actions workflow for me automatically. So this is going to say, on main over here, when things are open, synchronized, reopen, closed, all these different things. And then there's all sorts of good stuff. So it's only going to build and deploy in certain instances. It'll configure all your Azure secrets for you automatically. And then it does the same thing when there's a close pull request. It will publish it as well, which is cool. So you can take a look at that, all handled for you. I'm going to say review and create. This is where things get really, 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 really cool. I'm going to say create. And what this is going to do, since it's linked to my GitHub account, is it is going to automatically make a pull request on my behalf. And then what it's going to do is commit that, that workflow that we just saw. So here, right here, here's the GitHub workflow. Here it is. Here's my YAML. Amazing. We can see all that same exact code that's there. And notice that it's using secrets over here. So here's the Azure Static Web App secrets and my GitHub token, which is nice. And if I go over into my settings and I go down into secrets and actions, we can see there it is. So it's configured that for me automatically, which is really, really nice. Now what we'll see is that I have a full URL here at the same time. So I can click on that. And I get that my Azure Static Web App is alive and waiting for my content. So just give me some sweet, sweet content. That's all it wants. And over here on the left-hand side, we see that we have full ways of doing application insights, APIs, environments, identity, role management. You can control that hosting plan. Some of these are available in the free tier, some in the standard tier. And there's different automation tasks and things like that that you can put in there. And if we tap on APIs, we'll note that there's no APIs yet because we haven't deployed that backend here. So it's all going to be configured automatically for me. And we see custom domains. We're going to set this up later, but right now it just has an auto-generated domain that we just saw here. Now, if we hop back over to our GitHub Actions that are deployed, we can see that when it did that commit, it also kicked off the GitHub Action workflow. So let me go ahead and tap on that. And this is going to build and deploy my Blazor application. And then what it's going to do is deploy that into my Azure Static Web App automatically. And it's also going to build and deploy that Azure function for me and then make sure that that is all configured. So what we're going to do now is wait, and I'm going to speed up time to see how long this deployment takes. So let's go ahead and give it a few seconds. All right, it's done. There we go. That took what, 3 minutes or so to build and deploy, which is cool. So let's go back over here and let's go into our API. All right. And what we hope to see is that inside of our API that it has now deployed our Azure Function backend, which has one API to it, which should be that weather. Here it is. We have function app, production, manage, and we have a weather forecast. Very cool. So if I go in to here, and if I ideally say /API/weather forecast, this should give me back some weather. Beautiful. Sweet, sweet weather. Now, in fact, if I go and I just delete this and I load this, we have loading, we have our Blazor application. There we go. Look at this. Click, click, click. I can say fetch data, and that's calling that API backend. If I hit F12 here and open the dev tools, and I go into my network, and let's go ahead and refresh this, we can see right here, there it is. It's hitting that forecast get right there in my backend, just like that, which is amazing. And literally in 10 minutes or so, we've not only created our first project, we've opened it up, cloned it, we took a look at the source code, we integrated in and deployed our Azure resources. We then created that GitHub action and then deployed not only the Blazor website, but also the Azure Function backend. So now you saw that it had this Azure Static Web Apps.net URL, and that's where the API is and all this stuff, but we probably actually want a real domain name. That's what we want, right? We can go and put all of our source code in, our images and all this other stuff, but we want a real domain name. So let's go now and set that up. Now, there are great documentation resources, which I'm going to put down here to do all of that. But I use Namecheap, and I'll put a link down there to how, if you want to sign up for a Namecheap account or whatever. But I use Namecheap for all my domains. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through that process of how I set it up inside of Namecheap automatically. So let's check it out. So we took a look at the API, but let's go ahead and look at the custom domains. And here we can see that I can add them, either a custom domain on Azure DNS or on another DNS. So I have my domain name. I'm going to register My Life with Android. This is a domain that I've had since 2017 that I didn't do anything with ever in my entire life, but now I own it and now it's here. So here we go. All right, so we're going to go ahead and register this. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to say add, I'm going to say custom domain name, and I'm going to say www.mylifewithandroid.com. There we go. And hit next. So now this is going to need me to go and enter a CNAME into my DNS entry in Namecheap. So CNAME www, and I'm going to copy this value to my clipboard. So I'm going to go into my advanced DNS, and then I'm going to go ahead and say new record. Here I'm going to go ahead and say CNAME www and enter it here and hit save. All right, now of course DNS is a finicky thing because it's DNS, and an ideal scenario, fingers crossed, is it's crazy super fast, and ideally it picks it up automatically. So when I hit add here, this is going to attempt to register and try to find that CNAME record. So again, DNS takes some time to roll out. So pretty much you're just going to kind of sit here and ideally hit add until it adds it. And let's see how long it takes for me to get that up and running. But again, CNAME www, CNAME www, and the automatic there. So now we're just in a waiting game for DNS, but let's go ahead and see. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Already, I was going to pause and say, let's go really, really quick, right? But it only took a few minutes or so for it to sort of roll out initially. And what this did is Azure went and looked at those DNS records and noticed this, and now it's going to go ahead and configure SSL certs for me. Now this is going to do it for the www URL, but we'll also have to do a fallback for non-www addresses. The Apex, I believe, is what it's called. So we're going to show that as well. Now this here is going to take a few minutes or seconds or however long it takes. And I'm just going to speed it up. So here we go. I'm going to drink some more tea. All right, cool. Our CNAME has been registered and the SSL cert has been given. All right, so now I should be able to copy this. And if I come back over to a new tab, type that in, look at that. My Life with Android is now my Blazor application. If I do /API/weather forecast. I should also get back my weather forecast with my life with Android.com, which is very nice. Now the problem here is if I remove that www, it's not going to be able to find it. I need to go ahead and map that apex, sort of that root on there. So I'm going to go ahead and add another entry, and I'm going to say custom domain. And this I'm going to do it without the www dot. I'm going to say next. Now in this case, it's going to basically need to validate my domain name ownership with a txt file because the www is for the CNAME. So here it's going to see I need a txt and an @ sign. So let's go ahead and add a new record here. I'm going to say txt @ then we're going to add that value in here. And this is sort of a secret, basically saying, hey, Azure, I own this thing over here. So this is going to take a few seconds to generate, and I'm going to blur it all out. And then we're going to take it and copy it into Namecheap. Oh, there we go. It's already done. So I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to hit advanced. I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to hit go. Now that we have that txt record in, what will happen over here is this is going to automatically start to validate my record for me and make sure that that is all good to go. Now, while that's doing that, I'm going to need to do one more thing, which is configure another CNAME or an alias. Okay, so I can actually hit that learn more button, and it's going to show me how to basically set this up. So set up an Apex domain with an external provider. Now here, this is where it's going to tell me that I need to validate my ownership with that txt file. And then I'm going to need to set this alias record as well. Now your host may not, domain host may not have an alias record, but you might need to set up a CNAME with it. And forwarding, it's going to walk you through all that. Luckily, if you're using Namecheap, this works brilliantly. And we're going to create an alias with the @, and then we're going to leave the TTL as default, but paste the full Azure portal, like Azure domain inside of there. So while that's validating, I'm going to go and copy this again, go back to my DNS, hit a new record. I'm going to say alias record @ paste that in and hit OK. So a few things are going to happen here. The default TTL is 5 minutes, so it's going to take some time to start rolling out. And of course, it's still validating my record. And while it's doing that, the other thing I like to do is set the default custom domain name, and I like to make the www my default automatically. So we're just going to give it some time at this point to automatically start validating this from where we're at today. And then what we're going to do is see if that all is all configured and all working, and hoping DNS figures it all out automatically. So let's just wait for it to validate. All right, it is 100% validated, which is amazing. Now, I sped that up really fast, and you're probably like, wow, did that just take forever? No, it took about 10 minutes total. Right now, I'm about 35 minutes into the recording, even though probably you're looking at like, what, 20 minutes or something like that, 18 minutes, who knows? I don't even know. We'll find out when I actually edit this video. But now we have 2 custom domain names. The SSL TLS certs are automatically provided. Totally good to go. So now when I come back over to here, and I hit enter on my domain, or without the domain, right? So if I go ahead and delete that www, it automatically reroutes me to the www because it's aliased over there. If I just say my life with Android.com, type it in, it automatically aliases it to the www, which is all we ever wanted. So it goes to that CNAME. Basically, it's sort of doing rerouting automatically, which is nice. And there we go. We have our full custom domain name set up with our www route, and without the www route, that Apex is all set up, totally good to go. Now, if I go back into my source code, I start making changes, that CI/CD pipelines automatically pick it up and redeploy 100%. You can see right here, less than 29 minutes ago is when I started this whole thing, which is what probably you see there automatically. So just like that, we've done everything. From start to finish, we just took and made a website and put it on the internet with a full Azure Function API backend. That thing can talk to anything. It could serve up all sorts of goodness to our application. Now I did it with Blazor, but you can do it with any different type of application framework out there that supports Azure Static Web Apps. So take a look at the documentation And of course, check out the Azure Developers YouTube channel where they do live community stand-ups, not only for Azure Static Web Apps, but for all the other different Azure services like container apps, app service, logic apps, and a bunch more. These are things that I use every single day. Again, I love it. I work at Microsoft. I love Azure. I use Azure in my spare time. That's there. And I just think Azure Static Web Apps and Static Web Apps in general are just revolutionary to me because I've been able to scale up a bunch of websites really, really quick and for free, which can't complain with that. It's free, which is awesome. Now, if you have any questions at all, leave them below. If I can't answer them because I'm not a web expert, I will go and ask all my friends that work on that team, or I'll try to find someone else on the internet that knows how to answer it. If you know how to answer it, go ahead and answer it as well. If you like this type of content, let me know. I don't really do a lot of Azure type of stuff on this channel, but because I put it out on Twitter and said I did this, everyone's like, where's the video? Where's the thing? So I just sat down for the last 38 minutes and decided to make it. So I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did made it this far, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me and the channel. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you do it. And if you have an Azure Static Web App or other Static Web App stuff, put them in the comments below. Let me know what's going on there. Share it to me on Twitter, and I'd love to see what you built, whether it's with Blazor or not, if it's up on Azure. So definitely reach out to me. Thanks again for watching, and have a great one.